My name is Ty Wilson. I've been a musician for the better part of 20 years. Over that time, I have written, covered, and performed in almost every genre, from heavy metal to alt-rock to country music. I've met some amazing people along the way, and today we're going to talk to one of them. This is Ty Wilson Talks. All right, we have my first ever podcast today. So I figured who better to bring on than my best friend in the entire world, Mr. Kyle Dorricott of Far From Keene and Hello Operator fame. He sits down with me and we had a great chat about our previous experiences musically, the current state of music, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. So I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of a glimpse at what you're going to get from the Ty Wilson Talks podcast. So without further ado, here is Kyle Dorricott. All right, buddy.
Turn and look at me and everything. You're not just gonna stare at the screen.
That's fair. I wanted to see you.
Yeah.
I wanted to look at your face while we're doing this. All right.
I'm having a hard time focusing with your dog safety coat in here.
His traveling pillow?
Albert.
He's fine. He'll leave at some point. So yeah, welcome to podcast number 1. I thought we'd do it with my best buddy Kyle. He might be the first and best person for me to do this with, since he's known me the longest, or one of the longest, and we both play a lot of music together, and we've had a lot of fun in the past. So
that is very sweet of you to say. Thank you for that.
Of course, man.
Yeah,
of course. And so I have an interesting idea for this, where I want to go back and kind of look at prior, band experiences or music experiences, studio experiences. I don't want it to be interview style necessarily. I don't want to ask you a bunch of questions or anything like that. I just want us to chat. And, we have so many things that we've been through ourselves and so many things that you've been through that I thought might make for maybe an interesting conversation. So
it's going to be a reminiscing kind of conversation.
I think so.
We haven't reminisced in a while.
That's what I was hoping for. So before we get into our own reminiscing, why don't you say the bands that you've been a part of and all the fun things that you've done?
Okay, so yeah, in my younger years, so started playing in high school, like most of us did, as you know, and then I was a little unfaithful to my first high school band and some of its members, I believe, and I
my heart got broken.
Yeah, changed high schools to come and be with our drummer there, and that's where I met you, and then we played together in Far From Keene, the lovely cutting our chops in the high school experience there. And then I suppose, I'm sure we'll get to this in a bit more detail, but I'm sure my infidelity grew a little bit more, you might want to call it there. And then with Andrew Stricko, right, got the opportunity with him to go play. So him and I went off and played with with Hello Operator, and did that for a while before kind of giving it up altogether and joining the military. And then pretty much back to playing with you, which was always the most enjoyable of it all, and that's kind of an interesting take on all this, I think it'll end up being.
Yeah, I guess over the years, I know we lost touch for a little bit in our later teens when you joined the military, and I was a little upset with the whole Hello Operator thing, but then we finally kind of came back to one another and our love, and started making music again.
I feel like you put it a good way years ago. I remember, because when it first happened, and I got the chance to go do that and kind of left the group that we were playing with. I remember you being like, "I'm mad," and I was mad at the time, but I also understood that if you had been afforded that opportunity, what you said was, if I'd been afforded that opportunity, I would have absolutely taken it, and I know that you would have understood as well. So it was at that point of our lives, it was coming from a place of it's like, oh, I'm hurt, but I wish it was me at the same time, at that time. So
100%. Yeah. It's funny because I remember working at I remember that call. I remember that conversation, and I was working at No Frills, and I remember getting the call and just being completely gutted. and then being so mad for so long because it was something that we had worked on together, and the other band members, whom I love, Brock and Ben were great, but it was me and you that were kind of the real nucleus of that group. So I felt like I had lost my right hand a little bit, because you wrote a lot of the music. So it was,
we had Chris Ryder by then, and I think that's why it was a little easier for me to go, being like, you know what, Chris writes pretty great guitar parts, so I'm sure it'll be like in good hands at that point. But it was almost like calling it was like, back when you had to call a girlfriend to break up with them, opposed to just ghosting them on Instagram for a while.
You actually had to see them or phone them or talk to them.
I hope I'm not dating myself with the ghosting on Instagram. That's probably not a thing, but I'm not the greatest with that.
We're 30. It's fine. 31. It's fine.
But and the irony of that is, as much as doing that and having that, I guess, measurable semblance of success playing with them it still wasn't as fun as doing the high school stuff by any stretch of the imagination. And doing that like with your friends, opposed to just kind of being hired to do it. It was a cool experience, but it definitely lacked that kind of personal touch while it was happening. So
I was gonna say, you were kind of like a hired gun at that point. Andrew Stricko, who I think went on to play with Faber Drive after.
Yeah, he played with Faber for a couple seasons there, and then I'm not sure what he's doing now. I'm sure he still plays, but nothing recent. I don't think so.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Stricko in a while. I think he was in Toronto still, last time I checked. But so tell me a little bit more how that all came together and what you guys kind of did. I know you toured a bit. I know you had a couple TV appearances. Wink, wink.
Yeah. So he basically got the in on that because he was, I don't remember how he got in with them. It was something to do with the studio, but they were looking for a drummer to tour with, and then they were also looking for a bass player, and he was like, well, I got a guy. And they were kind of like, because him and I'd played and kind of messed around a little bit before, and he was like, okay, well, we'll just take the whole rhythm section, essentially. So I was like 17. I was a baby. They were all way older than me, so it was kind of like, I'll do whatever you guys need. I'll be here.
Yeah.
I'll play songs.
Sure,
so,
I'll play these songs, no problem, man.
So they sent me like the cuts of the songs with just the bass parts and vocals, and I, busted my butt in the basement, in my room in the basement there at my parents' house. And then when I had them, we did the auditions, and that was good. So we did a tour with Faber Drive in Canada, and that was like the bigger tour. And I think that's where they got a hold of Stricko when their old drummer left, and they were like, we'll have this guy come on board. And by that point, I'd already left and then moved on to a couple other bass players. And then they hung it up after that, I think.
Did they? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. So, and I was still applying to join the military while I was playing. So I already had kind of like thoughts of, this is fun, but I need to do something that doesn't have to get me back in my parents' house when I'm done, which is
Which was that? What that was doing, right?
It's a hard industry, right, to cut into, even if you're. And I really didn't know what I was doing. Like I was 17. I didn't know anything about recording. I didn't know anything about music theory. I was just like, I can play these parts. It's not that hard. Like
dress up in a bunny costume on stage,
pretty
or
much.
something like that. Yeah.
I was. It was like probably the epitome of faking it till you make it. I had an ID that said I was 25 in the States. It was like an Alberta age of majority card. It worked everywhere except Vegas, where the guys in the bar were like, yeah, this is not gonna fly, man. You can't.
I was gonna say, you guys ended up in Vegas on tour.
Yeah.
And where did you play? Where'd you end up playing there?
Well, in Vegas, where did we play? We played it. It was this place called the Beauty Bar on the old Vegas Strip, which was kind of cool because it was like a beautician. What do you call the place where they do the nails and stuff?
A beauty salon.
Is that okay? Yeah, it was like a beauty salon / like rock venue. So like girls who like come in and get like a manicure, pedicure while like doing shots and like watching rock music. It was kind of a cool concept.
It's actually kind of dope.
Yeah. And then the van broke down, so we were stuck in Vegas for a few days, actually. And then, then we left and went to San Jose and eventually made it back up to Vancouver.
Right. So how many dates did you guys do? Do you remember?
I don't. There was probably like 20 or 30 on that one. That was the first one we did that was down into the States, which was just us. So that was a lot of, playing to mostly empty rooms or being lucky enough to muckle on with some bands that had some notoriety down there and opening for them. So that was all right, but that was a grind, that one. The Canada tour with Faber Drive was better because that was their tour that we were just on. Right. And they played a lot of very kind of obscure Northern Ontario cities that didn't get a lot of concerts. Like they played Dryden, which I'd never heard of. It's like a...
yeah, it's way up there.
Yeah, it's way up there. And I guess it was like... I heard some of the radio promos for that show, and it was like, it's the first concert since like, I don't know, some big band in the 50s played here or something. Like, I don't, yeah. And it was in this like really cool auditorium, and I swear half the damn town was there. So like, that was kind of cool.
Dope. Yeah.
But,
and you guys were opening for them, right? That's how that goes. Now, were you on, I think, wasn't there like a Hillary Duff tour where you guys opened for them? Or...
They were. I wasn't on that tour.
Oh,
that was before me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then that's the thing. I wasn't. It was only for like a year before I was like, you know what, this is fun, but I can say I've done it, and I really wanted to do this other thing after that. And
right.
Yeah. So yeah, they had some notoriety. They were a good opening act for a few bands, and then they, like I said, I don't think they're playing anymore. So, and it's hard to find any like evidence of them because the White Stripes have a song. Called Hello Operator. So if you ever search it, that's all you find in the search results, it seems. I
remember finding, I think Take Me Away.
Yeah, Take Me Away. Yeah,
which that was in your room. I liked that tune.
Yeah, that music video is still on. Their music videos are still on YouTube, and then like we played on MTV Live.
Right.
But I can't. It was back before everything was recorded forever, so I can't find the original footage of that. My parents PVR'd it. And then they lost, and now it's gone. So I've been trying to find like contact numbers, get a hold of them, and be like, "Hey, do you guys still have this in an archive?" And I can't get through yet, and I have to start cold calling people.
Cold calling MTV Canada, which I don't. Do they exist anymore?
That's the thing. I don't even know if they're still around. They probably are, but they just probably play like Jersey Shore, and it's everything except music.
There's no music anymore.
No.
Although, have you heard Ed the Sox doing a like TikTok channel or like an Instagram channel or something like that?
I'm getting nostalgic just hearing Ed the Sock.
Yeah, I guess he's like, and you can like send in your videos or something like, and he's trying to like curate like a real music station, like Much Music was, only like in the social medias and stuff like that, which is kind of dope.
Yeah,
I thought that's pretty cool.
I think anything that's dedicated to the actual like the pushing of like good new real music and like raw music we probably need more of that, because a lot of people just have to do it on their own nowadays without a lot of backing.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing now is it's especially with COVID, doing things on your own is a lot more maybe sustainable or reachable to an audience, but at the same time it's like you're just lost in the sea of fucking everyone out there. There's so much talent, there's so much people putting out constant content that if you're not like a marketing guru as well as a business person, like it's just so hard to.
It seems like talent, even like raw talent, comes secondary to having a proper marketing team and having that right kind of catalyst for it. Because I mean, I'm a broken record. I say this all the time, but you walk in any bar in a major city on a busy Saturday night, and then the guys playing in the bar are just immensely talented most of the time, and you're like, why is this guy not famous? Why is this guy not living off music? And it's just because it's such a saturated market nowadays. I think it's very hard to break into.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's you gotta love it, and you can't have that that preconceived notion like, I'm just gonna get famous, that's why I'm gonna do this. It's like, now I'm going to play, and if something happens, awesome. Or I'm going to try and put things out there, at least for myself. I know that. Like, I'm just going to put stuff out there, and I know some people do enjoy it. So, that's something. It's good. And I love doing it. So,
and
make
even
a little
like
bit of money on the side.
For yourself, I've always found it super interesting that it almost seems like timing-wise, and maybe this is just kind of like a fate thing, is it seems like as soon as you stopped relying on music as like this is going to be my income and this is all I can focus on, like as soon as it, like when you got the job that you have here in Ontario on top of like making music, like that's when it started picking up, and it's like, oh, this is ironic, here.
It was definitely super ironic, moving back and then going into like the cover music, like bar gig scene that I'm kind of in, and then not just giving up on writing kind of completely for a long time. But then I was making more money as a bar musician, playing 3 hours of cover songs and a couple of my own thrown in, than I ever did like as a quote unquote professional musician, writing, pop music in Toronto and putting out a record there that, didn't do well, and doing all the, if you looked at my Instagram or if you looked at Facebook or something like that at that time, it was like, oh man, he's doing cool stuff. And it's like, no, I was just broke living in my producer's like basement with him.
And this is probably the big takeaway, it seems now, is that like like most of social media, musical success, how it appears is everything's a success story. Like, right, everyone's rich, everyone's famous, everyone's doing great, and that's relatively new. But even like going back to like Favorite Drive, right, in Canada at the time, they were on the radio all the time. That When I'm With You song is still on the radio in pretty moderate rotation. But like those guys aren't retired in the hills with boats and Fabergé eggs and stuff. Like I don't think that those guys, the illusion of financial success through music, I think is really is out there. It's very easy to look successful, just like it's very easy to have your life look like a highlight reel, on Instagram, because it is basically, right? You see people posting, it's like all good and it's another trip or another item or another perfect day, but like people's lives aren't perfect, just like I think musicians, especially up and coming or struggling musicians' lives are not perfect, right?
No, not at all. It's especially in Canada, it's so hard to be financially stable as a musician, or to you could be a working musician making $30,000 a year, maybe, and that's the successful ones. But I know we were talking about this before we came in here, that like what's the last successful band you can think of coming from Canada? And Arkells was our answer, and it was kind of like, well, yeah, but like, are they big in the States? I don't even know if they're.
I think they do. I think
have
they're
like real commercial success. I mean, they probably make 6 figures a year, which is awesome.
I think they're going to probably go down in musical history similar to like Our Lady Peace has as a Canadian band, where like they'll have their decade or decade and a half where they're successful pretty much everywhere. They can run tours internationally, and then they'll end up relying on that prestige to run their own studios, to run their own production companies, and to record others, and people will want to go to them for like the rest of their working lives because of that success they had. But I think it's really hard to maintain musical success for years and years and be relevant with how quick the music industry moves now.
Oh, definitely 100%. Like it's and I have to agree with that. That was pretty spot on, actually. I'm thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's okay, that checks out. Like,
well, it's like, again, we were talking about it out there, like even the Foo Fighters in the States. I don't like their new stuff. I find it very like kind of experimental and a little like alternative rock and stuff. But like they can obviously rely on their decade of immense success forever. But like that's just them trying to stay relevant, and it also feels like they've gotten to a level of success where like we can do what we want. We don't really mind if people buy it, but they don't have the pressure from a record company being like, no one's going to listen to that, so we're not going to support it. We're not going to put it out. Yeah. So. Well,
they don't. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an interesting thing that I'm seeing. I'll get your opinion on this because I've been thinking, or I've been looking or watching this. It looks like a lot of more popular musicians are crossing genres. Like I know John Mayer has always been one that's done that. Country and pop is one of this, they're very similar. Taylor Swift just put out like a folky album, which was amazing.
Yep.
Actually 2 of them, during COVID. It seems like the record labels, like, you don't need one anymore. Like, if you just go viral, or if you can put a team together that you trust. Billie Eilish, I don't know. And she, it's just her producer team, it's her, and they put out everything themselves, and so you have that artistic integrity back that you can use,
that freedom, because you're
in freedom, and which is awesome. I think that's a really great way for music to go into.
Well, and then like even Taylor Swift, who you mentioned, doing that total power move and re-recording 17, right? That's the album she's re-recording now, because she re-recorded Love Story because she doesn't own the EP master of the original, so she's like, fine, I'll just re-record it, and hopefully everyone in the world downloads that one, and that'll be the one that is played on radios.
Right.
It's interesting how radio's a good example, especially in Ontario, because even though sometimes the ownership of songs will change, some radios don't really get the memo on that. So like I'm gonna butcher remembering the song title, but you know that Evanescence song, the one "Wake Me Up"?
Yeah, Bring Me to Life.
Bring Me to Life. Yeah, Bring Me to Life. Okay, you know the bridge in that song where her guitarist is singing.
Yeah.
So when he left the band, he took his vocal rights to that song.
Oh, okay.
So there's a version of that song which is like the official legal version floating around, where that whole bridge, his vocals aren't in it. and neither is his like wake me that whole wake me up thing in the background.
Right.
He's not singing it, and it sounds really weird and empty with it. But like if you're in Toronto or you're in big cities or in the States, they have that version.
Right.
But you go to like Northern Ontario and they're still playing the old one. So sometimes it takes like I don't think Taylor Swift's ever going to get there in terms of fully replacing.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that because I remember looking for the Seether and Amy Lee song "Broken."
Oh yeah.
And I could only find Seether's like full version rock. I couldn't find the Amy Lee version.
Okay, so
anywhere it was gone, so I wasn't sure what happened.
And that used to be I'd never even heard the Seether only one. So like the Amy Lee and him used to be the only version on the radio.
That's what I thought. So I think the Seether one was just like a demo that they did previously or like prior to maybe to pitch to Amy Lee, but.
And it's so like what you're saying about in terms of doing it all yourself. I definitely agree that doing it all yourself and the ease of that means that more creative content can go out into the world. But I think there's so many talented people, right? There's thousands of talented people. So when you oversaturate the market with talent, you're only going to get so much of that market share.
Right.
So it's, and you know, people have a small attention span, right? So it's like people can say, oh, I love these guys, I love these guys, I love these guys, but you can only love enough people to like spend your money or go to their shows or buy merch or be financially supportive. You know, people aren't made of money. So when the record companies were pushing it, that's kind of as far as you had to get, as well as success. Like, if I get that record deal, everyone's going to buy this because they buy everything that Capitol puts out. They buy everything that, you know, or back when it was this, you know, the heavy rock scene, when it was like Victory and Epitaph Records, it was like, remember when we were like, oh God, could we get on
if we could just
Epitaph?
Get on Victory,
like,
if we could just get on Epitaph, like we'll be made.
Yeah, right.
And
so
which like looking back now, knowing what I know, knowing what we know, would have been awesome at the time. We would have been happy as fuck.
Would have loved it.
We would have loved it. It would have been the greatest thing ever. But
so I think that I don't think there's going to be a lot of bands, singer-songwriters going forward that are able to like capture the market the way that bands did in the last 20 years. And I think that's probably why the biggest bands in the world are still the same biggest bands in the world that they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
like we were going back to, like, I agree with you. I think Mumford & Sons was the last like quote unquote real band to break in with a new genre that the whole world was like, this is amazing.
Right.
And it's artistic and it's musical and it's them writing it. It's not a third-party songwriter just handing them material being like, you guys should play this. So
I think that's accurate. They were it was a musical fusion that we hadn't really seen. I guess that would be like 2010 when they came out, which is crazy. It's been that long ago.
Yeah, I know. It's
but it was brilliant, and I can't think of anybody that's really had the same effect in that amount of time. Like there are people like Billie Eilish, and there are people like huge stars, Ed Sheeran and that stuff, that are by themselves amazing, but like band wise, that was kind of the last.
Yeah, and it's not to take away from like solo singer songwriters, because obviously that is the market. I mean, but I was always maybe this is like an age thing for us, is that I was always a big slave to the radio. And then pardon me, I was a big slave to the radio, and then I was really influenced by, like, when we were playing music, was what you heard playing shows and like other bands. But I think the live show scene is kind of dying a little bit, especially with COVID over the last year.
100%.
And the radio is all singer-songwriter stuff. And it's like, I don't mind. I enjoy it when those songs come on. I'm like, oh yeah, this has like a nice beat to it. But it's almost like it's a form of entertainment more to me now than it is about like, wow, that song like really speaks to me, and I can't believe someone wrote that, and like I'm trying to interpret what it means, because I don't feel like that's...
I think that so I wasn't as much a slave to the radio, but definitely like I remember when we were in our teenage years, when we were in Far From Keene, and the stuff that I listened to, like getting that Taking Back Sunday, Alexis on Fire, Billy Talent, like getting those records and listening and being like, as someone that grew up on classic rock and like classic 90s and 80s country, it was like, you could do this. You can scream.
Yeah. Which
you
is
can
exactly
yell,
what all the...
You can be angry. Like,
It's amazing how that's generational, right? Because all the guys grew up listening to the Beatles were like, oh my God, I can listen to like Slayer.
Exactly. And because I listened to AC/DC in Boston and stuff, and still like Boston holds a special place in my heart. I'll always love them, but listening to those and pissing my parents off with it, and having, and then screaming in our band, like, you know, we covered Ohio's for Lovers by Hawthorne Heights as like one of our first ones.
Was the first one, yeah.
And being able to just fucking yell terribly, might I add, but
then,
really badly. But being able to do that was like revelational. And then, you know, Much Loud. We had our song on the alternate route on the Wolf in Peterborough, like our local radio station. Right. I remember like being a stock boy at No Frills, and after 9 p.m. we put on the alternate route, and so I'd be listening to our song while I'm stocking shelves, being like, I'm gonna be famous one day.
I fucking made it.
I fucking made it.
Like, it's like, now I'm just put these Cheez-Its where they go.
It's exactly.
The last time
I just gotta get these soup
things.
cans on the shelf, then we might be all right.
I think the generational influence is kind of cool because, like you said, you got a whole generation before us that, like, you know, the guys who grew up listening to the Beatles, and then those guys became, you know, AC/DC or Boston or like less of Van Halen and all that stuff you're talking about. It's like, and then I definitely agree with you. Is that I got lucky. My dad was always pretty contemporary with music. He would like. I'm pretty sure it was my dad who was like, check out Billy Talent. These guys are like really different. And I was like, oh, okay, old man, what do you got? And then like that Billy Talent record. That first record, just cover to cover.
Try Honesty gave
bangs.
Me like it does. It fucks. It's such a serious record. And when Try Honesty came on Much Music and I watched that video, I was equal parts. I think I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was terrified. I was excited. And I think I was a little bit horny because I was like, I'm just listening to it going like, fuck yeah.
It's just
like,
so
it's just so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know. I think they are probably, and this isn't going to be, time will tell on this one, but like, I would compare those guys, Billy Talent, I would compare those guys to like fucking Rush. Like, they are like the next generation of like just something completely different that came out of Canada and like smashed down boundaries. And it's gonna be the same thing, right? People will be like, oh, I don't like his voice, it's not for me, but I appreciate the musicianship, and that's like Rush as well. But for those guys to be so internationally huge, like they're bigger in the rest of the world now than they are in Canada.
Yeah.
Like, and with that style of music is just so impressive to me.
And they were so exciting. Like it was,
it felt like a flash in the pan.
Right.
That music genre, like when them and Alexis, when that was it in Canada, and the Much Music days, like that all just kind of like stopped in Canada with that genre. And I wish we were a bit more like the States in that way, where there's like dedicated music avenues for that kind of like heavy rock stuff. But
I think the sad part is like, you know, the States have that population size where you could sustain that subculture of people or that subculture musically, whereas, you know, a country with 33 or 34 million, however many million we have
like
here, and how large the country is, there isn't even enough to really keep a pop act, you know, sustained. So, you know, a metal act where you're not going to have as many, or a hard rock or whatever alternative act that you're not going to have as many people going out to see or want to listen to, it's almost impossible. You have to make it in the States, or you have to make it in Europe. You have to have, or even like South America. I know that's a big market for.
It almost, this is kind of an interesting try to way to say this, but like those genres of music, you know, they're kind of a bit more aggressive and angry and just trying to get out emotion and frustration. I feel like if anything, there's never been a bigger market for that in the last few years because of COVID. Everyone's pissed off. Everyone's cooped up. People want to go out and like rebel and yell at the world right now. I feel like, right? So maybe we'll get like a resurgence of that kind of music genre in Canada after COVID ends and we can do shows again. But what I always thought would be a cool kind of segment for something like this is like, I would love to go back to like Holy Cross, and I want to like talk to modern high school kids if I can like get them off their phones. I want to be like, hey, like, do you go to live shows? Do you know of any, like, is there a live show market in Peterborough for like young kids? Because I always thought it was weird that we could just like show up to the Red Dog, like an adult bar for adults.
Yeah.
And we're just a bunch of snot-nosed kids like playing in the basement, but like
16, 17-year-old teenagers.
Yeah, but we'd fill up that place. We were the only thing keeping Red Dog in business back then, I felt like, because the bar never had anyone in it. It was...
That and the bar had like Protest the Hero, and they actually had shows upstairs.
Yeah.
But we like took over the downstairs until whatever 11 p.m.
Yeah.
and there'd be some like whatever else going in there, and we'd fill it every weekend. Like every weekend, that's where you went to hang out.
Yeah, that was just what was going on.
Was downtown.
So.
I'm sure you could say that for any other, in the mid 2000s or late 2000s, Canadian city or American city or wherever, small town, small city, like that was where you went. You went there. Here in Peterborough, you went to the Spill, you went to, and you just saw what bands were playing or who was like hanging out or who was opening for who. Like I know when I was running shows, like I brought in Van and I brought in,
I'd forgotten about them.
Yeah, bands like that,
right,
where it was like, here's a headliner, and I want to play with these bands, so I'll book the show, and I'm just going to play in the first two bands. I'm just going to sneak my bands
draw
on the
a happy
bill.
Little bush in here.
Yeah.
Just your bands.
And I don't give a fuck if anybody knows it. Like,
it seems like nowadays everything is like so convenient and to your door, right? You don't have to go out for food anymore. Someone will bring it to you. You don't have to shop anymore. Someone will bring it to you. And that seems like what music is doing too. People are like discovering music. It's all digital. They're finding it on YouTube. They're finding it on iTunes. It's being shared on social media. Like I find myself finding a lot of like new bands on Facebook because they'll just be recommended to me and I'll be like, oh yeah, this bangs. This is a great song. And then you'll try to find them because the one video you got shown is like amazing production value because anyone can shoot a high production quality video now.
Yeah.
And I'll watch this and I'll be like, oh yeah, these guys must be like super famous and great. And then I'll like try to find the website and it's just
nothing.
This nobody band. And I was like, why are these guys not famous? So I think prior where it used to be like you had an interest in a band, but you couldn't really get their music.
Right.
Or you didn't know anything about them. You had to go see them live to really figure out what they're about. But now everyone brands themselves that you know everything about them and you never have to see them.
Right. I think it was like also like you had to buy that album to read like the album jacket. You had to get the lyrics from there. You had to get their story. You had to buy. I know for myself, like with Epitaph or Victory or like those screamo hardcore bands, like they had little demos. Like demo DVDs that came with a lot of the CDs that would show like live shows like from first to last and whoever else was on the label to introduce you to these other bands that were on the label.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was super rad. And I remember just like I would just sit in the basement watching those fucking DVDs over and over again going like, fuck yeah, like this is it. And it was that little a little bio beforehand, hanging it with a band, and then the live show playing wherever.
Didn't they used to put like little teaser demos like in the Victory and Epitaph like magazines and stuff too, or something like that? Like almost like the perfume folded page things in magazines. They used to. What
was Alternative Press?
AP,
Press.
AP, that's right. Well, I feel like that's how that like Secret Lives of the Freemasons, that band that we used to like listen to briefly. I think they were on Victory. Yeah, it's Victory they're on, and then. Yeah, like we would have never heard of them unless we'd gotten that physical EP from somewhere. I don't even remember where it came from. But nowadays, they might have just like popped up on YouTube or Facebook.
On a sponsored ad on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. And
there was just way less to focus on back then. Like I said, I just feel like it's information overload nowadays when it comes to music. And just as quickly as you're on to something new, you're then on to something after that. And like bands need like a dedicated following. They need like a loyal fan base to follow them through those like indoctrination years until they get successful, and I just think that's really hard to get nowadays.
Especially nowadays with everybody's attention span being like zero, like it's a goldfish, right? Like I'm included. I'm terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the what the solution for that is, but it seems like you almost have to come to the table being perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
polished, when perfect, ready to go. You have to have like 3 months at least of content to pitch out and to throw out there into the world.
Or the marketing team, or the uncle's got an in with the guy at the radio or whatever, and they're just gonna beat it into people's heads. They're just gonna. That's where I find myself singing new songs or like having a new song in my head. It's not because I even particularly like it. It's just because I hear it every time I turn on the radio, and that's like immensely valuable to. And I think it's very wasteful when you've got thousands and thousands of songs that could be broadcast, on a loop, and instead they just play the same like 30 or 40 every day.
I think it's hilarious that you listen to the radio, because I'm the opposite. I never listen to the radio and discover weekly on like Spotify. That's how I find new music.
Okay,
that's how I listen to stuff, or like playlists on Spotify or something like that. and I'll get it through that form. I don't find that I really find much music through the Facebook promo ads or anything, or YouTube. Like I'll listen to YouTube, or, like Tiny Desk NPR concerts. I'm a big, if I hear somebody that I like, I want to listen to them acoustically. I want to listen to them with like stripped down without anything there to accompany them. And I'll just go like in a hole with those like NPR concerts or just acoustic versions or sessions or something like that.
Well, and even like you're saying about Spotify is like creepy how it knows you. Like I think I turned on Spotify for the first time like forever.
Yeah.
A couple months ago, and the playlist it put out was like, oh yeah, this. Like it really digs in there. And then I still go to iTunes, and like every time I hear a song that I forgot existed, if it's on iTunes, I'll go buy it because I want it forever. So I'm kind of a slave to
Oh yeah, you use an Apple phone or an iPhone too, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm still stuck with this idea of like owning a quote copy of the song, even though that's not where music's really going. I don't think, but I think the future for that could basically be to have a subscription to the iTunes catalog. Mm-hmm. So you pay monthly for access to the iTunes catalog, and then they came out with that, right? That's what Apple Music essentially is.
I mean, that's what Apple Music. That's also what Spotify is. Yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah,
it's fine. I remember saying that like 5 years ago, being like, I'd love to have all of iTunes and not pay for it, just pay like a monthly subscription, and that's pretty much what they've done.
That's
so
what it is now. Yeah. Well, they had to keep up, right? They had to keep up with Spotify because Spotify's been that way for however long, 5 years, 6 years. I'm not sure what it is.
So in lieu of all that and the barriers to entry and stuff into the music industry, what do you think is like? What do you have to break into that? Like, where's that magic number? How many album sales is it? How much fan following is it?
I don't think it even has to do with album sales anymore. I think that if you're going to want to, or if you're going to try to break in, have good songs that you have prepared and fucking ready that you've mastered basically, and try to have a team, like someone that can video stuff for you, like record stuff for you, record stripped down versions. What I'm seeing a lot is like, especially in country music, is people putting out a recording, then a stripped down recording, then an acoustic video, and then using that as like 6 weeks worth of content and doing it all over again. No one does an album anymore. It's all single release, right? Yeah. So I know for myself, I'm going to record 3 singles and then do a release every 6 weeks and post content in between. And that doesn't even, that doesn't guarantee you anything, but you have to have eyes on you. For anybody to get signed, like if Warner Music's going to sign you or something like that, it has to be one of those Luke Combs situations where, okay, I came to the table with 1 million YouTube views and 1 million Spotify streams.
Yep.
Now I have something of use to you, so you can help me out. Yep. But that's another thing I was saying was like the record labels are kind of going by the wayside. They don't really have much to offer anymore except for maybe some funding.
Because they were exposure. They were exposure people, and they're not
right. And now you have exposure,
and
they're kind of grasping at straws to
stay relevant.
And just be like, we're useful. I promise.
We promise. Yeah. So do you think that maybe the future for that then is basically like, look at video game streamers, right? They're not creating anything. Right. It's the value of viewership, and they get paid, for views on YouTube and on Facebook streams. So do you think that that's where music is going to fit in the future, is basically where you'll make all your music revenue by streaming it, and that's how you'll be paid essentially?
I really hope not. I know that streaming is probably the most, like, where you're going to get the most revenue at the moment. Like, someone who has 40 or 100 million or whatever views on YouTube is making some bank. But live shows have always been the way you, and touring have been, are the way that you make your money as a musician. And I hope, I know COVID kind of screwed all this up, but I think that people still love live music and still love going to see live music and still want to listen and have that experience. Like, you've seen with your, I think it was with your dad, U2? Did you go to a U2 concert?
And that was one of my first concerts. Was
you
U2.
Can't how was that experience?
Oh, it was transcendent for sure. Yeah, and I'm not even like the hugest U2 fan in the world, but like seeing it live was like, it was. that was their Vertigo tour. I think it was
Right.
like I don't remember the year, but it was it was brilliant.
And I've had that experience a number of concerts. Like I was at SARSstock in Toronto when I was like 14 years old with my dad, my uncle, and some cousins watching AC/DC and the fucking Rolling Stones.
Was that the year they messed up the timing, so everyone thought AC/DC was coming on, but it was like Justin Timberlake's turn instead, and he got like bottled a bunch.
He was really early in the day, and I felt so bad for him because they all played for free. For the SARSstock, it was like a charity concert, right?
Yeah,
it was
just trying to do the
500,000
right
people
thing.
at Downsview Park in Toronto trying to do the right thing, and he was on with a bunch of Rush, like he was with Rush.
Yeah,
he was with
that's right.
like Sam Roberts was actually really dope. He was there. It was a really cool, and yeah, he was getting water bottles thrown at him, and you had to feel really fucking bad for the guy because he was just trying to do a good thing. But in the end, yeah, like watching AC/DC and like jumping around and rocking out as a 14-year-old or 13-year-old kid, like that is transcendent.
Yeah, it is life-changing.
It's just one of those moments that stays with you, and music does that. You know, like going to see your favorite band and going to see your favorite performer or group or whatever, and having that experience is such a like. People need that. It's
like when
visceral.
you and I saw Goo Goo Dolls, it was like that because that was like my first time. Like I'm a huge fan of theirs, as you know, and that was that was the first time I'd ever seen them. I never thought I'd be able to see them.
Right.
And then where was that? Was London?
That
I
was
think right.
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember because they. Fuck! I remember they opened with Big Machine, and I was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Remember they came on a bit early.
Yeah.
I was in the bathroom, and I missed like the first 30 seconds of Big Machine. I was like, no.
Yeah. No.
But the revenue for touring bands too is that we're still kind of antiquated in how we like measure success in the music industry. I think because it's still done by like album sales.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're digital album sales now, sure, but when you hear people say, "Oh, I sold 1 million records" and stuff, and
Right.
I feel like that was really cool when you went into a store and you picked up a physical copy of either vinyl or a disc, you know, and you bought that. Like I think measuring physical things like that, that's really really cool.
Yeah.
Because like. That takes effort to walk into
100%.
HMV and buy a CD.
It wasn't that long ago. Like I remember combing, going to like Blue Streak, the local record shop or something like that, and combing the like $2 bins for like a classic or something like that or a $5 bin, whatever it was, that you didn't have yet or that you wanted to see if it was in there. And I know, like when we were in high school, like we were kind of judged by your book of CDs that you had.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I had
right
3 books of CDs that I fit in my backpack with my Discman.
The anti-skip feature on my Discman, that's right.
Exactly.
And then, I remember when like you started being able to like, burn 20 or 30 songs onto a CD and being like, it's the future, it's now, like I'm not limited to like only one CD.
I don't have to change the disc every time I want to listen to a new artist.
Brilliant.
What is this?
But over the last, especially 10, 15 years, evidently, bands have to tour more and, sell more merchandise and try to sell more albums at live shows, like up-and-coming bands, obviously not huge bands, because that's the only way they can get people to essentially impulse buy their albums. Like, I definitely, the most CDs I ever bought was, like, at shows where they're like, oh, we got some CDs in the back, go check them out. And you're like, you know what? They were good. They put on a good show. They've earned my money.
Yeah.
Like, that's... Bands got to do that a lot more now because I would love to see, and it's hard to compare because like you're saying, it's a lot of single releases now. There's not a lot of like big albums. I want to see if the numbers today on like initial release or like on release day for new albums, what they are comparatively to like when it was a solid copy. If you sell 600,000 albums in like your first week when it's a physical disc, versus if you sell that now when people just have to like click on their computer to buy it. I think it's more impressive when they were CDs. Personally.
Yeah. And there was something to say also for having that track at the end that's like hidden.
Yeah, the hidden
bonus track or something like that. Like you don't have that stuff. It has to be in your face or you're not going to listen to it anymore. It has to be right there fucking punching you in the nose like, hey, listen to me. Listen to this fucking song. For you to get off your scrolling Facebook feed and go listen to it, right? It has to hook you in the first 10 seconds, or you're not gonna pay attention.
And I think you touched on it too in terms of like pride of ownership for your music collection and stuff. Like, I remember my dad was super inspiring with that growing up because like he had a very large vinyl collection, and then he also had, I don't even know if you can get these anymore. I don't know if you probably never saw them, but there were these like giant CD turntables that each held 300 CDs, and he had 3 of them stacked on top of each other, and they were all full. And you could like, you could see what it was. You know, you'd press it, and it would like to that CD and like start playing it. And I remember thinking it was like the most incredible thing I'd ever seen at the time. And I mean, now, you know, you've got that on your damn phone, and it's the future again. But yeah, I remember just when he wouldn't be home, when I would be at his place, just turning his, you know, giant 4-foot speakers on and going through that collection. And he had, you know, like Throwing Copper by Live. That was the first time I'd heard that CD. It just randomly came on. He had like Journey was in there. That was the first time I heard them. Like, a lot of that was from him. But just he was so proud of that collection. I don't think he even has it anymore with all the moves he's done. But like that pride of ownership and music collection, I miss that a lot as well.
Yeah, you definitely had something to like nerd out about, right? Like I remember like, in high school, like we were kind of music nerds in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like having all those CDs and having like, you know, wanting to listen to the most obscure bands possible that you could find, kind of thing. And
it's like they're cool because they're not popular. And then when they became too popular, it wasn't cool anymore. Sometimes, you know?
Yeah. But sorry, go on.
No, it's just I'd forgotten one last thing on the whole CD. The pride of ownership with music is that. Do you remember when you started being able to put your CDs onto iTunes?
Yes.
Yeah. So like, I had a pretty large CD collection, and I could transfer them in my iTunes library. And then after I did that, you know, the CDs fell by the wayside. They ended up in a box somewhere. And I think they probably all got thrown away eventually. And then I lost my computer the one time.
Yeah.
And
there goes your CD library.
There goes the CD collection, because I didn't realize that like it doesn't count.
Right.
Well, you can't just re-download it. And there's so many albums that I know I've just completely forgotten exist that I had on my iTunes library that I don't have anymore. I think my iTunes library went from, you know, like 7,000 songs down to, you know, 5 or 6, like that. Whoops.
Yeah,
so
super. I do remember that, and I remember transferring them over and being like, I'll definitely listen to these CDs. No, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are they now? File, right? So
I have a box of them, actually.
Oh, well,
I
there
still
you go.
have the whole box.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Is great.
Well, my bedroom got converted into another snake incubator, so I doubt they survived the move. I had like a dartboard on my wall that I'd been like throwing darts at, but they'd been going through the dartboard into the wall. So I know my my dad wasn't very happy with that.
Very happy on that one.
No.
So with this record collection of your dad's, what was your favorite one to listen to? Or the one that like you have the best, like what's your best memory sitting down in front of them?
I touched on before. My best memory of like playing music or like listening to music with my dad, there was 2, and they're kind of obscure, or like they're weird to pick, but it was the So Long Historia record that the Ataris put out when they had that Boys of Summer cover. It didn't get as much like credit as it deserves, but that whole album bangs like that. It's a great record. And that was just like I don't know, we did a lot of driving that summer, and him and I were hanging out a bunch, and that was on the radio a lot. It was that, and then like the existential moment sitting in the basement on his collection was that Throwing Copper album by Live, because like that was the first time I heard Lightning Crashes, which like to hear it for the first time on giant ass speakers and the way that song builds, like brilliant song, brilliant album. So yeah, definitely good memories of that CD collection.
Definitely. Yeah, I remember like one of my fondest memories looking back, because I had a very similar, my dad had, you know, hundreds of CDs. Like we used to get that Columbia House, that was our like big thing for like the month or the week, however long it was like, you know, okay guys, you get to pick 3 CDs each of like from the Columbia House like penny CD.
What do you want?
Thing. What do you want? And he got a couple, and then when they got in, we'd all sit down and listen to them. And then like my dad would burn me or mix me like mixtapes on our old. We had one of those stereos that had the recording feature. So like where you could put the cassette tape in. So you put the cassette tape in.
Oh yeah.
If like a song came on the radio, or if you listen to a CD, you could like record it.
Yeah.
And so we would sit there listening to like Boston, Styx, AC/DC, J. Giles Band, Midnight Oil, you know, all these rock and roll like rock bands and that stuff that like
and commit very early music piracy, basically, is what you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, we own the CDs,
Record
so
it.
we own them. He was just making sure I could listen to all of them. because my mother and my grandmother's side, which were very musical, were all country people. So he was like, "You're gonna fucking listen to rock, or he's listening to old
Boys
shit."
getting a proper education.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I remember this is a weird memory. I remember going down to sitting in the backseat going to New Brunswick because my great grandparents were from there, and they had a cottage down there. We were going to visit them and listening to Mr. Roboto by Styx in the back and just jamming out. And it was a random cool memory, but yeah, I don't know. It's really sweet the things like having that tangible. I don't think you have that anymore, or maybe the younger kids like do have that. Listening to my dad showed me this band on Spotify today,
and that's the scariest thing I think, isn't it? Really, is like, are we all just gonna turn into our parents? It's
I hope so, man. My dad's rad. I love my dad.
It's generational. We're like, oh, kids today don't understand. That's exactly what they said. And it's like, okay, well, if they don't, then educate them a little bit, I guess. But it's like, I do wonder about that sometimes. I think that because music's so powerful in terms of like, in terms of activating memories and stuff like that. We all have those songs that come on and you're like, I remember like exactly, and some of them are like so vivid and so powerful that like it doesn't just like bring back the memory, it just brings back like everything of what you were doing when you were heavily listening to that song. And it's just such a powerful thing. And I wonder sometimes if modern music and what is like heavily accepted as like popular music has the power to do that, and I hope it does. I don't have that with a lot of like modern music. Like something will come on the radio that was like a radio hit 5 years ago. The feel good hit of the summer will come on, and I'm like, oh yeah, this song, but it never hits me like a train. Like, oh yeah, this fucking tune. Like that. Yeah,
I get you. I guess this is a good kind of segue. The question I want to ask all my future guests, and you're the perfect first one. Is what is the most meaningful song to you ever? So I'll go first. I'll let you know. I'll let you think. I'll take the reins from you. So
you go ahead. Let me think. So while I half listen to your answer,
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
Thinking of mine.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, it's More Than a Feeling by Boston. Every time I used to say to any of my ex-girlfriends something like, if I'm ever mad, just put on that song, and I'll just like instantly.
Yeah.
It brings me to this place in my head of just like zen. I've always phonically, I think it's one of the most beautiful songs ever written. I have the record, like I'll put that on just to hear that tune.
Was Peace of Mind on that record too?
Yeah, that whole record's amazing. That whole record is but More Than a Feeling, I listen to it and I just melt. Everything's just okay in the world for that. However 4.5, 5 minutes, whatever that song is. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful tune.
It's true. That's a good one. I did not know that about you, actually.
I
did not know you had such a love affair with that song. That's interesting. Okay, I do have mine after some careful reflection while still being interested in yours, actually, because like I said, I did not know that. Mine is, and it's weird because it's from a band I don't really listen to that much. It's Fix You by Coldplay.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah, there's just something about, it's probably a memory thing, but like my dad is absolutely enamored with that song too, and like it's just a very, very like powerful song to me, and like how it builds, and it's very, very simple, like all like Chris Martin stuff is for the most part, but I mean like basically the after the second chorus, when just that guitar, when the guitar starts going, and it's just so.
Oh, it's amazing.
And then the 4-part harmony in the last part there, it's beautiful. Boyce Avenue do a really good cover of it as well. That do all that, but that's probably the most. I was trying to think like what song, a most powerful song, and that song tears me up every time I hear it. And
it tears me up too. I get it, man.
That guitar part in that is, so I think that's probably in terms of like the most powerful song.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like my favorite song. There's definitely songs that come on and make me feel better.
Yeah.
But that's definitely the most powerful song in terms of like getting you in the gut for me.
That's awesome. That's a great answer.
And I think my sister is the same. I think that's her song as well. and my dad. So yeah, there's something.
There you go.
Yeah, he just cut right to the heart of us.
It just gets you. It just fucks you up.
What's a difficult question, right? Because it's like it almost needs to be asked like, what's your favorite happy song? What's your favorite like?
I want powerful
in the feels.
That's it.
Song.
I want powerful in the feels. What makes you like? What fucking crushes you, but also lifts you up at the same time? It's like,
That's basically what it is, and that's how I feel that song is, because like for the first two verses and choruses in that song is very like kind of like getting down, and then just how that guitar part into the interlude, into the bridge rises up like that. And even though like you watch the live videos of him doing it, like for that concert series when he was doing it live, like he had that big spotlight like swing around the stage and then toss, like it's just a very powerful image and stuff too. So
that's awesome.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Kyle. I love you, dude.
I love you too.
So much fun. We kind of got into some cool stuff, and I'm really happy that was the first podcast. So thanks,
good conversation.
That was a good conversation.
Didn't
that was
feel
great.
Forced or unnatural.
No,
or
I know,
it was
right?
Good.
It's almost like we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, I know. That's right. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you soon. All right, that's it. That's the podcast. I appreciate you listening today. If you could please do me one more favor, go to wherever you listen to your podcasts and write me a review or subscribe to the podcast there. It is so much appreciated, and it helps me out tremendously. You can also check out all of my socials at Ty Wilson Music. That's Insta, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you'd like. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of Ty Wilson Talks.